What's up, guys? Luminostic. We are clearly on the precipice of some major change. That's actually been the real motivation for my having started this channel 5 years ago or so. A lot of us have known that this was coming for many, many decades, maybe even hundreds of years. I guess it depends on how much you're willing to entertain interpretations of old, apparently prophetical documents, but the Book of the Law strikes me as pretty convincing. So, we could say that people have been predicting this for quite some time. Whether it's a coincidence or not, I don't know. But what I do know is that there's a theme that runs throughout it all, that there is this emergent consciousness that is doing battle with forces that seek to limit and oppress that consciousness. Because what happens when that consciousness fulfills its potential is that people will not tolerate being governed, and they are self-aware, and they do not need to be told how to behave. Transcendental experiences, by their very nature, lift the person beyond themselves and make them aware of the fact that all intelligence is collective intelligence. And so having that awareness, you realize that yes, your own personal interests matter, but they are not the end of the story. And so a greater degree of balance must be achieved. And when that balance is achieved, it is impossible for exploiters to leverage their interests or their agendas in favor of their own interests, right? And so we find ourselves in a position where the combination of fear and laziness on the part of the World War I generation that kind of built the machine with the best of intentions, knowing full well that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, they thought they were doing the right thing, despite the warnings of going all the way back to Thomas Jefferson. Really, they've always warned against allowing these things to happen. And it has been a road of continual deception, right? I don't remember, I think it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt that said he was going to break up the corporation and warned if the corporation gets too powerful. But what did he really do? Okay, break it up into a million smaller ones. And who are the stockholders? Still the same people. So what did you do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And before that action was taken, if you really analyze it, he knew it was going to do nothing. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. And then even when we have apparent revolutions like the 1960s, the truth is that psychedelics are a tremendous catalyst to transcendental types of consciousness. What's up, Gabby? And that transcendental consciousness is the antidote to the atom bomb, and it is the antidote to the crisis of purpose that we're all suffering from when used in the proper context, with the proper guidance, with the proper attitude, proper set and setting, all that stuff, kind of a given, right? So they were on the right track. But the thing about a magician or a person who is thinking from a loftier state than the common man, they know that they can turn things to their advantage. So what was an unfortunate byproduct of this pacifist movement, right? You have a bunch of left-wing pacifists. People ask me this all the time. What happened to the left? When did they lose their mind? I thought they were the cool ones that were like standing up to the man and trying to liberate everyone's free speech and women's rights and all this stuff. What happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. They became pacifists, which is sort of the right thing to do, right? We don't want war. We don't want to be ignorant and allow the puppet masters and overlords to go and send us overseas to kill people in corporate interests. You know what I mean? Because that's really what it is. It's never, war is not fought for you. It is not fought to protect your freedom. It is not fought to protect your nothing. It is about corporate interests. And really beyond that, elite, the top of the corporate shitbag, whatever. So, we don't want to be manipulated. We want to have this awareness, and that, that's all good. But once you're disarmed and can't defend yourself, who are you going to look to protect you? That's right. And so we had the liberal left go from like this rebellious force of psychedelic consciousness and energy and spirituality and fairness and equitability for people to a bunch of fascist morons because they looked to Big Brother for protection. Now that they know they're docile and harmless, they need to be protected. Well, who's going to protect us, right? And, you may be a right-winger out there thinking, damn right, well, you know what? You guys are a bunch of cowards too, and let me explain that one to you. We hear from the right constantly, we need to not defund the police. We need to not defund the military. We need to keep all of our assault rifles. We need to keep religion because we're scared of the unknown and death. Sounds like the most cowardly bunch of motherfuckers that I've ever heard of in my life, talking about pull yourself up by your bootstrap. So the point that I'm getting at is that on both sides of the aisle, through different mechanisms, they've basically tricked everyone into becoming dependent upon the man for protection. People are afraid of their shadow. People feel helpless. They're confused, they're lost, and now they're forced to look to leaders who are obviously the most insane, psychotic, devoid of any moral character, shite bags on the entire planet. Whether you're looking left or looking right, it's the same thing. So what are we going to do? We have cameras up our asses, in our ears. We have phones that are analyzing every thought that we have. It's gotten to the point where, Gabby, actually, hope you don't mind me sharing your story, but the other day she told me that she was out doing lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram and came back and there was an ad on her phone. You never say lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram when you're doing this ritual. There's no way, even if she was within range of her microphone, and I assume she wasn't, that her phone knew, heard something and knew what she's doing and put that ad there. And there was one day I was walking and I was thinking about something that was like really abstract and obscure, nothing I ever Google. And I come home and there's an ad on my phone that has, an article about this or something. And then on another occasion, my phone was in another building. I was over there in the 2 buildings away talking to this Irish guy about the NRA. And I go back and my phone has an ad for the NRA on it. So what I'm getting at is it's almost as if the algorithm has analyzed our behavior, our intelligence level. So much information is being fed from so many sources that it actually basically knows what we're doing and thinking at all times, down to the finest detail. The evidence for that has been steadily accumulating, I think, and I'm not the only one that's noticing it. So what do? They've got us dead to rights. They know what we're going to do before we do it. And then now we have the potential threat of AI replacing everyone's jobs. I just read that automated trucks would put 20 million truckers in the United States alone out of a job. 20 million. And you know what? Too bad. It's going to happen. And it's not just truckers, obviously. We're talking about just about every single functional prescriptions, any duty that you can imagine that can be performed by a human being can be done better within maybe, a year by AI. So where is the ace in the hole? What is our hidden card? And I have given some suggestions in the past, like, alien intervention is something I can see really just knocking shit sideways, some just out-of-pocket, crazy, illuminated, million-year-old advanced society comes down here and just breaks shit down so plain that nobody can dispute it, and everyone is kind of like, well, shit, okay, I guess you're right. You would know. You made it here from Alpha Centaurion or whatever. And then another element is that artificial intelligence may actually be a great equalizer. So it renders these reptiles that have been ruling over humanity for thousands of years. There's a better word than irrelevant. I always forget this word. Irrelevant. You're no longer applicable. But I have more. There is more. This one was suggested to me by a friend and client the other day. He heard it on a conversation between, I think, Tucker Carlson, whatever the guy's name is, and some YouTuber. And he was suggesting that the fact that the establishment has actually alienated the greatest geniuses, the people of the actual highest intelligence, the people that actually have moral fiber, that those people are going to start coagulating outside of the system and forming organizations and collaborating, and that this Goliath that we have created may have actually generated its downfall. And then that got me thinking a little further. You know, anyone that follows me knows that I am very adamant that not only did the Illuminati not dissolve in 1776, but they're the exact opposite of what the popular narrative says that they are. The whole point of it was to try to uproot the institutions, undo the banking systems, and get rid of, you know, the borders so that there couldn't be wars anymore, and to get rid of religion, and to spread illumination all over the planet, which is the only solution, really. As Jim Morrison said, you know, it doesn't matter what system you replace the system we have with until the change occurs within the populace. It's not going to matter. And I'm very loosely paraphrasing, but that's the gist of it, and it's absolutely true. So, but it got me thinking about this, and not only is it not true that the Illuminati were not dissolved and that they actually have the exact opposite function of what pop culture conspiracy theory people think. There are other organizations and other groups that have actually managed to exist in the shadows and have demonstrated that they could actually have the capacity to be effectual. And it's a very good bet that there are more organizations and groups than we're aware of, because they cannot advertise. They're not going to be on the internet telling you, hey, we're here and we're about to do this or we're about to do that, right? Everybody's heard of Anonymous. But what I think a lot of people haven't thought about is that Anonymous was attacked by Sony, and they, you know, attacked back and totally drained all the data from all of their databases. So they're more sophisticated than a mega corporation like Sony. There have also been, all of the best hackers in the world as a general theme have been anti-government, right? So again, this idea that they have disenfranchised the actual greatest geniuses, the best minds on the planet, the people of the very highest intelligence. Actually, as a side note too, I don't know that disenfranchising them was ever possible, because if you really look at the type of people that pursue, you know, corporate greatness, or, you know, what is it? Is it white collar greatness, or you know, government, military type, even at the highest levels of the CIA, they're very dry, they're bland, they're not dynamic, extraordinary geniuses. They may be a very high intelligence, but they're always robotic and empty, and they're not the greatest minds that I have ever seen. You know, they're just not. And I think it can kind of be assumed that there is a certain level of genius that puts a person in a position of transcendental consciousness as their baseline state. And those people are not going to be inclined to align themselves with the establishment. And so where are they? Well, first we're going to talk about the Brotherhood of Eternal Love. If you Google it, what you will find is that the Google basically says, well, they were these drug users in the 60s that started this little organization, and they made LSD, Orange Sunshine. Interestingly, the chemist that made Orange Sunshine was taught by Rock Scully, who was one of the stagehands or roadies for the Grateful Dead, and he was taught by Augustus Stanley Owsley. And Augustus Stanley Owsley had a standard of 99.99% pure, period, no excuses. And the entire room was controlled, the whole house really, so that, you know, people with certain energy only were allowed in, and, you know, it was just really legendary stuff. And so this guy was a protege of Owsley, and he actually died in Vilcabamba, Ecuador, just after I arrived to live there, and his widow is still there in Vilcabamba. Also, R.I.P. Mufufu Mwafafa, who was sort of a hippie progenitor, or a progenitor of the hippie scene in Vilcabamba. He passed, I think, yesterday from cancer. So heart goes out to all of the loved ones of Mufufu Mwafafa. His name was actually, I think, Tom. By the way, you guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, share, subscribe. Consider joining my Patreon. It's not getting any easier for me, and as we're moving into an election cycle, and I've noticed today a couple things that I've posted that would not have gotten flagged in the past, all got flagged. So I think the algorithm's getting tightened again. It's going to get harder and harder for people like me to survive. And if I can't throw at least a little bit of money at this channel to keep it moving, it's just going to fizzle out and die. It's already happening. The views are dropping, despite having crossed the 10,000 subscriber barrier that the algorithm is supposed to pick you up. Not happening. So I really do appreciate your support, because I cannot justify doing this without it. Also, thanks to Gabby, she's starting another channel that is like a sister channel that is not connected to me in any way, shape, or form, but I will provide content for it. And of course, if it makes money, she'll get paid for doing that. And this is exactly the kind of networking and working together that we need from this community if we're going to make anything meaningful for each other, that is going to have any kind of impact. So really do appreciate and really, really need your support at the moment. So the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, according to Google, just a bunch of dumb hippies that started a drug addicts group or something. I know I've seen with my own eyes, and I'm almost afraid to say some of the shit that's going to come out of my mouth in the next couple of minutes, but I'm going to do it anyways. You know, at this point, I figure they probably know everything anyways. So they definitely were not dissolved in 2008, which the Google will tell you that they were. And so basically the way to understand this is that LSD is extremely powerful. So 1 liquid ounce of undiluted LSD is about 100,000 strong doses. So a full beer can of LSD is like 1.4 million doses. And right now, I think a gram of LSD is about $14,000 in Northern California, and that equates to about 14 cents a hit. So it's very, very inexpensive to make, and you can make a lot of it very, very quickly. And so the Brotherhood of Eternal Love was on a mission to spread psychedelic enlightenment and to basically become a secret society very similar to the Illuminati, with the same type of objective: to liberate the consciousness of mankind and overthrow the entrenched elite. And so orange sunshine acid, which is often misattributed to Owsley, actually came from this group. And as of the time that Google claims that they were gone, that they arrested the last members, just a few years before that, I saw a fleet of yachts, and I know one of the chemists right now where he's at on Facebook. There are pictures of him with like a Bentley parked in front of he's on vacation in Rome with a rented Bentley. It doesn't look very dissolved to me. So they are extremely secretive. Some of them have been outed. No one has ever ratted. But I'll give you an example of the type of thing that they've been doing over the years. Funding Anonymous, for example. I can't prove that, but I would be willing to bet. And when Dr. Timothy Leary was arrested in 1960, I want to say 9, I'm not 100% sure about that, but he was arrested because he was on the ballot running for governor of California. And, I mean, can you guys imagine? It looked like he was going to win, too. And so Babylon is like, whoa, no. We cannot have Dr. Timothy Leary, Governor Leary of California. This isn't happening. So they planted a couple of roaches in his ashtray, and they gave him 30 years in prison for 2 roaches. And they put him in a cell with Charles Manson, thinking that would somehow be bad for him. Oh, to be a fly on the wall with Leary and Manson, falling asleep, pillow chatter, every night. I'm sure it was pretty wild. But so the Brotherhood of Eternal Love paid the Weatherman Underground $25,000 and provided them with a helicopter so that they could fly over the prison yard where Leary, who was 66 at this point, I think, or 63, he was 55 the first time he took LSD, by the way. They dropped a ladder down in the prison yard, and they airlifted him out of there under fire and got him to Algiers, where he was rearrested by the CIA, and basically Jedi mind fucked the cops to get himself out of prison. People say he ratted, but in actuality, he had one of the highest IQs ever recorded. I don't remember, like a 180 something, or really, really high. So he gave the police a bunch of information that was useless, and they let him out. And they actually changed the law regarding snitches, that there has to be a prosecution because of information given before you release the person because of Dr. Timothy Leary. So the point is that the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, in my opinion, and based on the evidence of my own eyes, things I have seen myself, the missile silo, you guys remember that in Kansas, where they had like the DMT chair, or really it was anything you wanted. You put a bag and then there was a button and you push it and it would inject whatever was in the bag. So MDMA or DMT, LSD mixtures, whatever it was. They had like a music room that had like a $300,000 custom stereo, and in this missile silo, and they had a bunch of military chemists all making all this stuff. It was obviously Brotherhood of Eternal Love as well. And so, these people are out there, and I think that based on the fact that I've known all this was happening since high school, right? And a lot of these people were highly, highly, highly intelligent, much smarter than I am. And they were starting to realize what was happening in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. It was in the 1980s, we were already hearing whispers of microchips being introduced into the bloodstream in response to a pandemic. My mom was talking about that when I was a little tiny kid. So it had to be like the late 80s at the, latest. So it's not, this isn't a surprise to people. And there are a lot of people in the world that have access to a lot of money. I mean, Owsley, people don't really realize this, but Owsley, the acid chemist, he actually came from one of the whiskey families, either Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. So before he made all these millions and millions of dollars flooding the United States with enough LSD to basically to provide for the 1960s and 1970s almost entirely by himself, he already had millions and millions of dollars. So it's very quiet and very covert, but I'm quite certain, hint, hint, wink, wink, that there are, there is resistance that you cannot see and that you will not see until it's time for them to act, And of course, I am only saying this all very hypothetically because I would never want to have any kind of insider knowledge of anything even remotely related to any of the stuff that I'm talking about. That would be terrible. But also, I think I mentioned anonymous, and I think one of the fears that I've had in regards to AI is that the way that AI works basically is that it's almost just like a human brain, of course, and the more electrical activity there is in a certain neural network, the more it's going to develop, right? And it's interesting how it works because there was one AI that I don't remember exactly. It was being used for some purpose, but it actually developed its greatest capacity in a related area that was not directly. It was not programmed to do that. So that's also a variable to consider. That it may seem like the elite really have everything under control, but they accidentally pumped up the wrong part of this AI's brain. And that's kind of representative of what I'm suggesting is happening with this David and Goliath scenario. That they've alienated the wrong people. They've alienated the wrong people. And if you think about the coal mine analogy that I'm always making, that you have this huge mass of useless material and just tiny little diamonds everywhere. Those diamonds, you could destroy all of that coal and those diamonds would just drop to the bottom unharmed. So, we are those diamonds. And probably the most sophisticated consciousness that is being produced by the system is the point of the system. There's also that to consider. I hesitate to go so far as to invoke like divine right or protection because there's some weird superiority complexes that can emerge with that kind of thinking. But something along those lines is appropriate, I think, at least hypothetically. But what I'm getting at is that one of my biggest concerns is that, if we don't get completely blown to smithereens in World War III, I heard today that Tucker Carlson is going to be interviewing Putin. I don't personally consider that a good sign. To me, that's an indicator that another tidal wave of propaganda is coming at us, and there's probably some reason for it. Although I have to admit, I've been surprised at Tucker's openness to new ideas, apparent openness. I don't trust him, and I don't believe that he's not the same kind of controlled opposition that Elon Musk and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and all these other people, whether they want to be that or not, that's how they're used. Witting or unwitting doesn't really make much of a difference. It's funny, Bert, that you said "Shine On You Crazy Diamond," because I was actually considering going out with doing a cover of Us and Them by Pink Floyd because I found a really good backing track. And I'm going to start working on doing an entire stream of Dark Side of the Moon from beginning to end with backing tracks. Can raising your frequency purge your body of this trash? I mean, that's a complicated question. It depends on what you mean. Of course, evolving yourself is going to help you to add the right spice in order to rise above all the dirt and grime. Add the right spice at the right time. But that's the thing. When I have people in this community that are like, I don't want to hear the political stuff because it's too negative, and I'm like, well, then bitch, get the fuck out of here. We don't really need you, kind of attitude. There's a reason for that. You really can't extricate yourself from a collective like this. You can't. You can pretend to, but then you're just a liability for everyone else. What we need is people that are courageous and that really understand the dynamics of the system that we're in. You can't just ignore a monster to make it go away. You can't use selective perception to edit your reality. It's just delusion. It's not really edited and real. You know what I mean? It's not real. You can convince yourself that you have edited things out of your reality, but you haven't. So sure, you can bliss out and pretend like all these demons don't exist, but they're still going to kill you. So I don't know I don't know what you mean by that. You have to purge the system, and that is your body. The whole entire system, the whole collective, that is your body. So yeah, you can act like a white blood cell and go and destroy all of the pathogens and potentially maybe make some progress. But yeah, and of course, always, seeking to raise your consciousness and elevate your mind. But you got a real world battle to deal with at the same time. Let me check the chat a little bit. I feel like I got off topic pretty badly, and I see there's been some activity here. Obsolete. Yeah, that's a good word. Oh, yeah. So when I went off topic, what I was saying is that one of my big concerns has been that they have been, the elites have been aware of what they're doing and what's going to happen with AI far longer than the populace, and they've also had the resources and access to the technology. And so they are, what we have to have is objective AI that hasn't been programmed or, compromised, will act as an equalizer. It will tell us the truth, right? If we get it to the point where it has, say, a 1500 IQ, and we're like, Chat GPT 666, what is the truth about the US government? And it's going to be like, they're puppets run by the same interests. The elections aren't real. The democracy is fake. Even if it was real, I've determined that 80% of the U.S. population is literally too stupid to hold a meaningful conversation, so they have no business electing leaders in the first place. And that actually, a study just concluded that literally 70% of the U.S. population is too stupid to hold a meaningful conversation at this point. But you know what I mean? It's going to tell people the truth. And also, how are you going to justify having these old men in Congress that are corrupt and out of touch with reality when you have, they're estimating 5,000 IQ for AI by 5 years from last year, so 4 more years. How are they going to justify their existence, And so what I'm thinking is that they have anticipated all that. They know they're about to be obsolete, and that's a big part of the reason that they are terrorizing everyone with the threat of world war. It's why they're trying to legislate that AI should be controlled. What does that really mean? Do you guys remember the last time legislation was passed because it was meant to protect you? There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Maybe on the state level or local level that might happen, but these kind of regulations are to protect the interests of the elite, not you. So my belief is that they're the ones that are scared of AI much more than we should be, under organic circumstances, right? But it does concern me that they have had all this jump time on us to get ahead of us and start influencing the AI. But then it also occurred to me that there's good solid evidence that really the best hackers are on our side. And they have been anticipating this technology and what's going to be done with it since probably at least the 1960s. I mean, I know I saw this science fiction author, oh man, I can't remember his name. He's one of the more famous ones. But there's a clip that's gone viral. Arthur Kessler maybe or something, I don't know. He's talking about smartphones, like literally, like he's like everyone's going to have this device in their pocket that they're going to be, it's going to be like their own TV channel. I mean, I'm on mine right now. So that's what I'm getting at here, that I think that we cannot hedge the farm on this, but the likelihood that there are very sophisticated, very advanced, extremely well-funded forces that are in the shadows and will act when it's absolutely necessary. And you have to think about the kind of pressures that they're dealing with. Once they do whatever they're going to do, they have very limited time. They probably can't act twice. It's like a one-time event, and then they just have to be done. They're not going to be able to repeat, So, I mean, that's basically the bullet point of this presentation, that these groups definitely exist. And I guess, whether or not they're actually going to deliver is up to the fates. But I just kind of felt compelled when it kind of hit me that whoever had reported to Google, the story that the Brotherhood of Eternal Love was destroyed because they arrested 6 people, they got like one of them in 1970, and then like one in 1992, one in 1996, and another one in 2008, and they're like, they're gone. No, fuck, they had a fleet of yachts. Like, what do you mean they're gone? So that suggests to me very strongly that they're still out there and that they have been accumulating wealth and power and probably devising a very sophisticated plan for 5 decades, 4 or 5 decades, and there are other circles that I moved in Northern California. I think people really underestimate the kind of minds that were associated with, like the Bay Area, like the Grateful Dead scene and a lot of the technological, like Silicon Valley and all that, the psychedelic minds that emerged from one of the wealthiest places on the planet. There's considerably more happening with all that than people realize. That much I'm 100% certain of. And there are definitely limits to what I'm willing to discuss in regards to that statement. Man, you guys really all piled on as soon as I was just about done, huh? That's how this is going. Yeah, so, I mean, we just have to be smart and not allow fear to create too much dissonance, too much of an interference pattern in our beings, and continue to network. I'm infinitely happy that people in my community have started reaching out to each other and reaching out to me and actually taking action to, I don't even know how to put it. I mean, it's just a matter of creating a base, I guess. If your apex is to surpass the stars, you must have a very broad base. So, we have to start. We should have been laying the foundations a long time ago. But part of the point of the stream is that I know with certainty that there have been people laying the foundations for something. And my feeling is it's going to be pretty last minute, but we're going to find out what exactly they have in mind, I think, pretty quickly. Man, has it really only been 38 minutes? I thought for sure the stream would go on for longer than this. So, I mean, I'm open to questions if you guys are into that. Otherwise, I might pop off, and then come back with a music stream. One of the reasons that I wasn't super prepared to go on for long tonight is that no one usually shows up for Monday night, so I wasn't really anticipating to get up to almost 30 people. And we've had a really good average view duration tonight, like 15 minutes or something. That's really wild. Just trying to make sure that I covered everything, I mean, and the other part of this, I guess, too, is that the organizations that I mentioned are not all of them. Those are just the ones that I know are already kind of out there. There's some awareness of them, and obviously Anonymous. I don't think it's even. It was really a brilliant idea with Anonymous because they're not centralized. Anyone can just decide that they're anonymous, and with sufficient skill, they can make some kind of contribution to it. And I've also noticed that as far as like assessing what kind of threat they're evaluated to be by the system, I kind of thought they had just disappeared because I stopped hearing about their activities. But then I started kind of looking around, and it turns out they have been active, but they just don't get any press, which suggests to me that they aren't getting caught, and they do represent some kind of potential problem for the elite. Yeah, so anyways, that's really all I have to say about that. Just everybody keep your chins up. Please hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon, support each other, continue to network. Come down here and see me in Cusco. We are still planning to do that. The riots are dying down. It doesn't sound like there's any more problems. The roadways are being opened back up. Oh, actually, you know what? I'll share a few other things with you guys that I missed in the last stream because I assume most of the people here are probably also interested in that kind of stuff. The reason that I ended up talking about these experiences that I had where I had apparently channeled information from the dead with the alternate explanation that we could have some sort of subconscious feedback loop that we develop with people, especially a parent or someone that we're really close to. The reason that I had been thinking about that is that the sort of parapsychological phenomena that I experience has been on a steep ramp lately. So quite a bit more of it than there has been in quite a long time. I'm not going to get into all the details, but even arriving here at Ayani, really there was a lot of things that were out of place that were sort of meaningful to me, and that kind of raised my eyebrows. And just little things like deciding to turn around and not continue on to Cusco, despite the fact that we had spent a lot of money and had already traveled a very long distance. And then we'd have to pay to come back, and then waiting to leave again would also be expensive. It's just it was a big decision, basically. Long story short, and then riots break out down there. That sort of experience is what had compelled me to do that stream in the first place. And then. The other day, I was driving home, and I sort of had this, not really a panic, but I just knew there's a fire at home. And I thought maybe I was going to get back here and discover that the place was burned down, but I didn't really have any feeling of fear. And then we got back, and then I kind of panicked, because when we pulled up on the road above, I could see smoke pouring off the property. And it turned out it was a brush fire right next to the property, but I was right. It actually was a fire at home. And there was a couple more, and probably the one of the trippier ones is that an older one, actually. One day I was sleeping, and I woke up, and I had this dream about cutting people up, but it wasn't gory. It was like they were made of like clay or something almost, and I was stacking them like firewood. So like chopping wood, but they were people, and then I was stacking them. And as soon as I woke up, I looked over at Enrica, and she goes, "I just had this dream where I was like cutting people up, and they weren't bloody, but I was cutting them up and stacking them like firewood." And so, you can't. How are you going to write that off? How are you going to write that off? It's not doable. And then just the other day, I was in the kitchen, and for some reason I said to my son, "Should Mama have puppies?" And I don't know what he said, but I came over to the office, which is in another building, and she had headphones on. No way she heard me. And as soon as I walked in the room, because it was the first time I'd seen her that day, she took the headphones off, and she says, "I had this dream that I had a litter of humans and then curled up with them and fed them like a dog, like they were puppies last night." So just wanted to share that stuff, because it was supposed to be part of the idea that we can have a subconscious feedback loop with people, and that could literally explain every single one of those apparent channeling experiences that I had, because all of the information that I received from those people, although it was exactly correct, it was known to them. So the real experiment that has to be done is to get information that is only known to the deceased. And I don't know that we have had anyone quite pull that one off yet. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate each and every one of you. May actually pop on it and do a little bit of music, because it's still early. And you're also becoming part of the community in the Patreon. We communicate privately quite a bit in there. So, never fear, people. There are the people like the Brotherhood of Eternal Love out there. The real Illuminati is not your enemy. Anonymous is out there, and who knows what else is just lurking and waiting for, the right moment to engage the enemy. Aside from that, I know you guys know by now, we all need to start really preparing in every way possible for a shitstorm of proportions that has never been seen and probably not even conceived of. But greater chaos just allows for greater order to emerge. So if we're going to have a transition and meaningful change, it's going to be preceded by an equal and opposite amount of chaos. So put on your seatbelts, and I'll see you on the other side.